go ahead and begin, and we'll let people jump on as they see fit. And for those that have joined us already, we truly appreciate the time today. And for those that don't know me, my name is Travis Burris. I'm the Vice President of Global Channels and Alliances here at NUWAVE. I have Craig with me, the head of Global Channels at Tollring. And today's session, I don't want to classify it a webinar. It's a roundtable discussion. I want an open forum during the time spent together. But really our goal this afternoon or this morning or this afternoon or this, in Craig's case, this evening, is really to educate the channel on a great, exciting product. We're excited about our partnership with Tollring. We're excited about Analytics 365. We want to enhance the existing product portfolio. We want to drive additional revenue for your organizations. And really, we all use this term in our industry, right? We want our customers sticky. So we want to capture all that business as much as possible. So today, Craig will be driving the overview, but we take a different approach to our roundtables. We don't have to wait until the very end. I will be monitoring the chat or the Q&A. So if there's any questions at any given time, please just put them in the chat. And then when Craig takes a breath or takes a drink of coffee or in his evening water, we'll have those addressed. So once again, Craig, if you don't mind, I'm gonna put you on the spot. I'm gonna turn it over to you. And once again, everybody, thank you for joining this afternoon. We truly appreciate it.
Yeah, that's no problem. Thanks for that, Travis. Appreciate the intro. And yeah, it is water. It's not quite beer o'clock here yet, but very, very close. So,
let's get in there, right?
We'll be there very soon. So I'm just going to flick on the screen. So Travis, if you can just confirm you can see that for me there. You got the slide up. Is that looking good?
I believe I can. I'm not seeing the screen quite yet. Let me turn it on here. There we go. I can see it now. Hopefully everybody else can as well.
Okay, great stuff. Well, thanks for the intro, Travis. So yeah, that's a great setup, and we're obviously really pleased and excited to be talking with everyone this evening. So. I guess just as a bit of an introduction as to who we are and what we do, really. So as Travis has given me a lovely glorified intro there, I'm Craig Hoyle. I'm the head of channel partnerships at Tollring. I look after our partnerships around the world. And I work for Tollring. Tollring is just over 30 years old. So we're 32 years old this year. And we work to produce some software that looks at recordings and conversational intelligence, as we refer to it. And more recently, in the last couple of years, we've pivoted our skill set to look at the Teams calling analytics environment. And that's what we're kind of really here to look at today. And we're going to talk a bit more about what that is, what it does, where it adds value for everyone in the channel, both end customers and partners, and how you can turn it from an opportunity into an opportunity. So I guess a bit about us. I mean, we've got about 25,000 customers globally. We monitor 1 or 2 endpoints, as you can see on the screen there, and we've got a presence in 20 countries through about 45 service providers around the world. In addition to that, we've got some Microsoft certification for the products we're talking about this evening, which is a fantastic process we had to go through, but it's a really good endorsement of what we've produced and where we can use it. So, you know, customers and partners should feel confident that they're using some software that's been certified by Microsoft. And the last part for us is the ISO certification. So we've got 9001 and 27001 certification that was recently renewed as well. So that's a bit about us. I'm based in about 40 miles west of London. And as Travis said, it's good old evening time here. So it's good to be talking to you as a global audience, if you like. So I guess that's who we are. So let's kind of get into a bit more of what we're here to talk about, really. So I guess Teams is a great piece of software. And what we're looking to talk about today is a relatively simple idea. Teams is great, but actually you could look at it as every Teams deal is actually incomplete without analytics. I mean, Teams works really, really well. As we all know, Teams is a great piece of software. It produces a nice communication platform. It's relatively easy to use, and it gives customers a great platform to manage their business with. And that's great. And then particularly, of course, when you think about migration scenarios and people bringing a new platform in, it's relatively straightforward to use. So it kind of upskills people and produces a working platform really, really quickly. But I guess from our perspective, that's kind of just the top of things, really. That's just kind of like the surface layer part. There's much more going on behind that, really. There's a bit more of the sort of invisible stuff to work on and understand a bit more of the depths behind it. And that's where we come into this. So let's kind of try to turn that into a bit more of a realism, if you like. So if we keep the iceberg analogy going, which I have to be honest is a piece of marketing genius from my colleagues. So thanks and well done to those guys. So like I say, on the top, you've got the users, the calls, the devices. That's all working really nicely. And we love that. that's great. You know, people working remotely can use Teams and communicate really nicely. You've got inbound, outbound calls, you've got internal calls, you've got all sorts of stuff going on. But actually what you don't know is what's going on underneath. So if you've got a company that's working nicely with all this telephony, that's great. But how many missed calls have they got? How long are the wait times for those calls into that environment? And actually, what's the performance like of all the agents in there? So it's kind of, that's what we're talking about when we say it's the missing layer, because you don't really know. If you've just got Teams as a telephony platform, that's fantastic. You'll have some communication, but actually what's going on beneath it can actually be really interesting and more impactful. We talk about making data-driven decisions within our business, and actually some of the data we can produce gives people the tools to actually understand a lot more about what's going on in their business. So as it says on the lovely slides, if calls matter to your business, then understanding those calls matters a lot as well. And that's the layer we're really here to talk about today. So A365, we call it Analytics 365. So what does it really mean? What's the opportunity? First things first, we're not really just focusing on call center deployments here. This is not just a piece of software that sits in the traditional call center as you might think of it. We've actually got customers of all sizes, all shapes and sizes globally, from a few users to hundreds to thousands of users. And it doesn't necessarily stick in any vertical either. It can actually apply to any vertical, any horizontal usage. If you've got an inbound, outbound calling environment, then there is a use potentially for this platform there. So don't be sort of prejudged on the size of this. This can scale really nicely across large and small opportunities. The reason we exist, if you like, or the reason this product exists is we talk about the visibility of call activity. So this is not just about fancy wallboards up on the screens. This is about understanding data in real time and historical information. So it's a case of not only can you see information on wallboards, but actually if you wanted to dive into it and understand the next layer down in an organization, this platform will enable you to do that. As we mentioned on the previous slide, it's certified by Microsoft, so you know it's going to deliver and it's going to be robust. And then the last point on this slide is we're a cloud hosted environment. We use the Microsoft Azure platform. So it's really secure and actually it's very, very straightforward and easy to deploy. So there's no hardware required, there's no collectors, there's nothing like that. We connect into the Microsoft API platform to get all of our data. So I guess that's the opportunity. That's what we see as the purpose of A365. Yeah, that's what we see. So I mean, I guess, go on, Travis.
You know, Craig, you bring, and I apologize to step on your toes, but I like to ask questions.
I was going to ask you a question anyway.
You know, when you refer to, obviously, you know, I'm looking at this platform, which is now, guys, and which I didn't say at the very beginning, is now within the marketplace within iPilot for self-provision and management and turning on. But you refer to, and we do the same thing, right? We don't concentrate on a certain vertical market because we can accomplish that. But can you provide us maybe with a solid business case based on the 4 tiers, the operational and the certified and so forth that you've seen on some of your opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk a bit about that in some of the other slides, actually. Some of the sort of example scenarios. But I mean, the first 2 we'll cover off in some of the other examples, Travis, a bit later on about sort of what sort of use cases you might find for this. In terms of the certification and the cloud-based platform, we don't have necessarily a use case for that, but that's a really solid endorsement. And we find that people take trust in both of those credibility points, particularly the Azure hosted environments. People are very, very keen these days to talk about security. It's becoming an increasing piece, as I'm sure you very well know from your customer interaction. Security is really, really important to people now. So yeah, we find that is really important to outline that in our partner conversations, to be perfectly honest as well. So I mean, it would be great also to put you back on the spot. I mean, what did you see in A365 when you saw it? What was the value to NUWAVE, and what did you see as what would bring it on board for you guys?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think the underlying value, right? The information, like to your iceberg, right? We right now with just a client application, I only know ABC, right? And with this, I see the whole gamut, the entire alphabet of the analytic aspect. I could use this for performance reviews. I can use this for staffing needs. I mean, it's pretty much unlimited when it comes with the analytics aspect and what we've already started to use it right in our team here at NUWAVE, and we're just digging into it ourselves. And there's a lot of value that I see there. That's my personal opinion. And I know some of my team is on this call as well. They might have their opinion. If they want to drop it into the chat, that's fine as well. But really, it's really the underlying aspect of the product, right? I have the full visibility of my organization, from communications to complete collaboration, if that makes sense.
100%. And actually, with a nice unprompted question, you've answered a perfect answer there, Travis. In terms of that is typically what most of our customers describe. That's typically what most customers describe as the best use of this product. It really does that underlying next level of detail into a business. And when we talk about, as I say, data-driven decisions, but also insights, it gives you insights that you may not necessarily see from the high level out anyway. Perfect. So without planning, that's a perfect segue into my next slide, actually. So, I mean, typically when we're talking to customers, the needs or the benefits fall into these sort of three buckets, if you like. Now, not exclusively, but typically these are the good sort of areas where we see value and partners get value from it. So when you're having customer conversations, typically some of the questions that you might find on this slide are those that you might speak to customers about. Or when you're talking to customers, if they mention anything in this type of anything that's on this slide, then they would benefit from having some analytical information that goes into their business. There's a lot on there. We're not going to spend all night just looking at each one of these, but I've picked out three. I mean, I'm happy to go over some of the others if we get some time or specific questions, but sure. I've picked out just three of these now to have a quick look at these. So let's jump into a couple of these. I mean, these are theoretical scenarios, but the idea is to your previous point, Travis, it will help exemplify a little bit about what you actually do with this type of information. So the sort of scenario we've suggested here is wait time. So do you know how long your customers wait before giving up? So if you picture the scene, you've got a nice inbound call coming into a customer service center or indeed a sales line. And actually on surface value, it's looking like it's really good. And there's lots of calls coming in, you're answering them. It's all working really, really nicely. But actually, how long are those people waiting before they're getting answered? And actually, how long before they drop off, before they can be bothered to wait any longer? We had an amusing scenario in the UK a couple of years ago where our version of the IRS, as we affectionately call it, HMRC, they had a scenario where they estimate there was 800 years of call waiting time spent waiting to speak to a tax advisor in the UK. I know it's a staggering statistic. I love it. It's incredible, isn't it? But that would probably be the same case with our IRS here. I'm not passing comment about that because I don't know who's on the audience show. But yeah, typically, you don't know that sort of information. So by understanding that, you can then make decisions about, is your call routing okay, or do you actually want to put a comfort message on at a certain point? And again, by using the breakdown as to how long people are prepared to wait, you can change the experience they have. And the other thing here, which is really key, of course, is that typically when people phone in, it's the first interaction with a business. So you don't want that to be a boring, long, protracted engagement. You actually want that to be quite a nice, sharp, snappy, useful engagement for people to speak to their customers and agents or whatever they are. So the idea is, how can you get to those people quicker and give them the best experience? So that's the idea, to set the first interaction off. Does that make sense, Travis? Does that make sense what you hear? Absolutely does, because at the end of the day, guess what is the first thing that we always want to do? It's all about the customer experience. Right. I mean, it's all about you have your colleagues, but at the end of the day, without those customers and that good experience, we don't have our colleagues. Right. So no, I completely agree with that. And that's going to be very important. And anybody on the call should be thinking about that with any of their customers. Right. Yeah. Better handling that customer experience on their behalf with a solution. So. Yeah, absolutely. So there's as we follow on from that, there's the second scenario we've sort of put together here, which is about goal performance standards. So, the way to look at this, imagine you have got a number of people that answer calls, and you think you know who's doing really, really well. The answer is, again, how do you really know? I've got an expression we use, which is, how do you know if you don't know? In other words, you can make assumptions and you can take a very high level view straight away. But actually, when you look at the detail, it might tell a slightly different story. So when we talk about performance standards, you might want to consider how many calls is a particular agent taking? Are they spending more time per call than others? Are they taking fewer calls than others? Are those agents having a longer wait time on calls or between calls? And actually taking that data, you can start to then potentially reroute calls to improve the previous scenario we talked about wait times. Or actually, you might even just balance workload around a group of people, because you could have people answering 90% of the calls and actually the rest of the business perhaps not being as loaded as they could be. So performance standards is a really interesting one about how do you make everyone get a consistent experience. So if we flow the scenario through, you've rung into a business, you've had a great answer experience, and then actually when you're in that business, you're getting a good experience with being managed by someone who knows how to handle a call efficiently and effectively. So it kind of flows from one stage to another, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. And Craig, actually, one of my colleagues just brought up another use case scenario, if it's okay, if I can chime in real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
And this is coming from Mr. Eric Chun. So it sounds like, and I'm going to read this, it's kind of lengthy, so bear with me here for a minute, but concerning like marketing campaigns. So I guess the question, the scenario that was proposed was, does NUWAVE have any kind of solution creating numbers to use on marketing material that can forward to a main number, for example, so we can run a report to see how many incoming calls or calls coming in from that particular ad? And the answer to that scenario is absolutely yes. So prime example for sales or marketing groups, having a level of transparency is obviously very key to our success. And that's, Eric, I appreciate you providing that scenario, which kind of goes into the performance aspect of things that Craig was just referring to.
And actually, if we take it a bit further, Travis, it's a really good point. Yep. Within the product that we produce, you could search by certain DDIs. So you can very easily just isolate the activity for that one particular call, that one particular number, sorry. So for example, if you ran a campaign with a call in number or call to action as a call in, just filter to that number and you'll be able to see what experience those customers have had. And you'd be able to see missed calls to that number, etc. as well. So it's a good example to bring up actually, because it does help tailor a bit more about what you might use the analytics for.
That's great. That's an enhancement to that scenario. So there's no reason why Mr. Chun can't go out and sell this now.
Brilliant. Love it, of course. And then the last sort of scenario we talked about here is missed calls. I mean, this is one of my favorite ones because it's a really straightforward one to talk about. If you think, when we go back to the iceberg slide on there earlier, you've got a really busy phone system, for example, you've got a busy business, and you might think you've got it uncovered, but actually, how do you know what missed calls you're getting? Because if you're really busy, no one's keeping a track of a missed call necessarily. And the other side to it is, actually, how do you know you're not missing calls before you get busy or even after busy? Are you missing calls out of hours? And it's quite an interesting scenario. When I've spoken to this with end customers directly, actually, and you can see the scenario where we don't believe we're missing any calls whatsoever. In fact, this actually happened with a big service provider in the UK, and I sat in their office and said, well, let's run a report on your business. And you could see their faces as like, when they realised they're actually missing calling opportunities.
Right.
And then once you've got a missed call, you've then got an opportunity of calling them back. And there's some statistic that says 80% of people that don't get an answer on the first call don't bother calling back.
Yeah.
So use this information to be proactive from a customer service or a sales perspective. We had a really big retailer in the UK, and granted they were very large, but they used our missed call report as a key business metric, and they estimated it protected £60 million worth of revenue in each year by just proactively calling people back before they managed to call one of their competitors. Now, granted, that was a very big partner of ours,
Sure.
but the principle's high and strong. You could apply that to a car dealership where they might miss 10 service calls a day. And what's a service call worth? $500 a service? I've no idea, I'm guesstimating now. So if you can convert 10 of those a day, more than you work, it's a really easy business case to work through. So Yeah, so I think missed calls is probably one of the best, the easiest ones to explain. You can, of course, set reports for this type of stuff as well. So it's not like you've got to proactively go in here and look at it. You can get reports emailed out to you to every day. And the great thing about this scenario is you can see an impact really quickly from when you start employing the data and the information on it. So it has a really straightforward return on investment when you look at that again. So yeah, that's probably one of the best ones we've got, to be perfectly honest.
And I would agree 100% on that, Craig, right? Because in today's marketplace, it doesn't matter what vertical, if I'm selling widgets or gadgets or cars or whatever, it's a competitive marketplace. And to your point, I know me as a consumer, if I call somebody you're not answering, I'm going to call, another gym to go train at or whatever the case might be. So no, that right there alone, I mean, that sells it for itself right there. I mean, I like that a lot.
Agree.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing to think about is we're almost conditioned now that when you ring a business that's got a call an IVR of some form, we're almost conditioned to accept that it's going to take a long time. But how good a feeling is it when you walk away having had a really quick experience with that organization? We're all sick of waiting in call queues and blah, blah, blah. But actually, if you ring a company and you get an answer really quickly and it's effectively managed, it's a great experience. And that's what you walk away and I forget the analogy, you tell 2 people of a great experience and what was it, 8 of a negative experience. So they're the ones you want to really harness. And that's where we add value to people's businesses and help shaping it.
No, I think that's a major value add.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a bit unprompted. I mean, I've got some time in here. We can open the product and have a quick look at it, Travis, if you think that's of value, or we can just carry on with the preso and do that bit at the end if you like. I'm pretty chilled either way.
Yeah, let's go through the slides, and then if we have time for the demo, because if not, what's going to happen, guys, everybody that's on the call to say, we're really not here to sell you anything. We're here to educate. But I will say this, that my colleagues and our sales directors, they will be calling you next week to start working on projects. So, and then if we need to do one-offs, Craig, we can definitely reach out and make that happen as well.
Yeah, so that's absolutely fine. So then let's carry that theme on a little bit here about what we spoke about earlier about so where does this land and who uses it, or trying to move away from that feeling that this type of software is only really for call center environments or that larger sort of setup, if you like. So, I mean, yes, it can work in there. So if you do have a call center environment, then yeah, absolutely, this is a layer that will work beautifully in Teams as well. So it's not to say it doesn't work. It's just it can work in other environments as well, if you like, at other sizes. So in this slide, what we've done is sort of built out a few of the sort of watch outs, if you like, here. So if you're speaking with a company that's got a really small team, but they're really busy. So you might find that the missed calls is really important to those guys. We've got a partner in the UK that is looking to deploy this type of thing to really small independent retailers. And that's exactly one of the scenarios that they'll look at. They'll understand what's the missed calling environment, because it may not be so important for them to look at agent performance, for example, but there's still a value to be had from that feature in there. If you've got a service and support environment, then it's going to be service levels. So this is the bit we talked about, how long calls are waiting in queues, how many legs has that call gone through, what's that caller experience, what's that caller tolerance. And some of this can be contractual, of course, Travis, as well. In other words, you've got to answer calls within X minutes or seconds or whatever it is. And that could be, and within the product, you can determine what good looks like. So really easily, you'll get a visual representation about whether you're meeting those service levels. And again, you can set that by number as well. So you can quite quickly turn a need of understanding your support environment into some sort of numerical information to steer that business as well.
So is that just based on a certain threshold that you establish based on that group or individual? Okay.
Everything you said, exactly that. And you can look at it on a call queue basis as well. You can set thresholds for what's good and what's not good. So yeah, you're absolutely right. You said it by DDI as well. So you can build a picture quite quickly about what's happening across the business.
Perfect.
Then we talk about the inbound, outbound sales, performance visibility. So this is a bit like what we said earlier about number of agents and how long they're spending on calls, who's got a longer call time or who's spending less time on calls. And there's no right or wrong. Every business will have their own culture, style, approach, sales methodology. It doesn't, we're not here to say what's right and wrong. It's just a tool with which you can understand what's happening and use it for coaching. Who's to say
Yeah.
you'd look at your best performer who might actually have a short handling time, and then you kind of put 2 and 2 and go, well, what are they doing on those calls to be so effective in such a short period of time? Or you've got a performance having really long calls and they're still not able to deliver as well. So again, you can start to isolate the calls that are of value to look at and help grow the performance.
Yeah, and I really like, to your point, Craig, I like the term coaching, right? Because a lot of people will look at this and go, oh, my job is on the line if I don't do X, Y, and Z. No, it's really, we want to position it as, hey, we're here to coach. We're better in the process to make our company better as whole. So I like that term that you use.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. I don't like that other feeling either. I mean, like I say, we provide insights to make business decisions which are more effective and more efficient and more improvements. So yeah, I completely agree with that. The last point we've got on here is growing organizations. This enables consistency. So because of some of the things we said about the filtering earlier, you can obviously look at departments, individual numbers, users, timeframes, all sorts of scenarios. So you can apply the same thinking across multiple different parts of the business. Now, some of that may mean you might need to tweak it in different parts of the business, but actually you've got the option to be really consistent across the board. If you've got, I don't know, let's say a North sales team and a South sales team, you could run reports on the same metrics across those different teams and then end up with the same comparative data. So it just makes it really easy to be consistent across larger organizations. So again, this builds from the previous slides we talked about, the sort of things to listen for with end customers and partners about where this might be of value.
Yeah. No, that's great.
So I guess in terms of adding value, I mean, it's about pound notes. Crikey, there's a wrong phrase. It's about dollars, dollars and cents, not pound notes. We haven't had a pound note in England for a long time now. But yeah, so I mean, I guess it's all about ARPU and revenue. Okay, so one of the things we see is that this adds an opportunity of revenue. So you're not just talking about connectivity. Yes, sell connectivity, that's really key. And there's plenty of other really good services that you guys can offer that's really important as well. But one of the ways some of our partners are really successful is they use this type of thing to differentiate the offering. So it's not just do you want fries with that, as we call it. It's not just and do you want analytics? If you wrap this in a really creative way and you kind of go, so Mr. Customer, we've got you a nice Teams telephony platform and it's been configured such that you'll be able to understand missed calls and also when your busy periods are, you start to build a differentiated proposition which end customers should see more value in than just looking at the pound notes or the dollars as it is. Now, it's easy for me to say that, but that's one of the key areas we see that we add value, not just in what we deliver, but also it helps partners differentiate in a really competitive market. So there's a number of aspects we pull out on this slide here. It's relatively easy to sell. We've talked about that enough. As Travis said, we're not going to go into a selling mechanism on this call, but ultimately, hopefully the very high level value can be seen from this. It's proven and certified. We talked about those, and it's sticky because it becomes really important. And actually, the more people use this software, the more value they get from it. And actually, we know a lot of our customers use it for board level reporting. So they really have quite a high dependency on some of the data that we present. And we talked a bit about the deployment. It's like I say, there's no hardware required. It's not a huge task. It's a very simple software-driven connection process to the back end. So it's really so don't be afraid of any sort of major huge efforts to go. And the key part for me is this is not dependent on any new hardware. It's a bolt-on service that works out of the box for customers.
Well, you're looking at the increasing teams, right? And the biggest thing that I take away from this, and you can keep me honest here, is we're delivering a full, true deployment, a completed product, right? Just not like you want your fries too. It is a complete solution, just like we do with all of our alliance partners, right? We are delivering sticky, full product solutions. And once all the partners that are on the call today starts talking with their sales directors, the price points are just so aggressive. It's like, why are you not doing this? That's the way that we position it here. That's my opinion. Yes.
Yeah, no, I agree. I absolutely agree. And hopefully, I mean, what we try and do is steer people away from selling it as an analytical software. what you're doing is you're demonstrating what value it can bring to an organization. So from a customer experience, a sales improvement process, or an operational improvement, think of it as understanding, helping to improve the value on the business rather than just a piece of analytics, if you like. That's kind of a key thing from our side of things.
I would agree with that. That's the way that we represent it as well.
Yeah. And then just as a sort of closing part to my presentation part, if you like, all the slides, if you like. So I mean, this is how to get started on it. Obviously, you speak to Travis and the team, and we kind of touched on this, and I'm not trying to close the call, if you like, but we have touched on this just now. But add it to the proposals, add it to customer proposals and deals and quotes. I mean, it's there, it's ready to use, it's easy to deploy and straightforward to add value and understand customers. So yeah, from our perspective, I would say that clearly. But yeah, hopefully what we've talked through is showing more than just the deployment of analytics with a load of numbers on a page. The point is, if you deploy this with customers, it will help them understand their business and do a bit more. So I guess that's the sort of slides, Travis, we put together here. So hopefully that wasn't death by PowerPoint for the audience, but hopefully that's put together some thoughts to help provoke some ideas.
No, this is brilliant. I mean, now you got me thinking, which, you can't smell the smoke burning, but it happens often. But no, I see some of the things that I'm looking now, and I'm thinking about our channel and some of the opportunities that we've worked on, or I'm looking within our forecasting tools. And to your point, once we're able to, and we're not going to talk pricing on this call, we'll talk to our sales directors, but the biggest thing is just include it. Like, what's the worst thing they're going to ask you to do is remove it from the quote, right? Yeah. If they don't know, they don't know. And I'm telling you, with the price points of what we're delivering as a full solution, it's going to make business sense. And this is, obviously I'll talk to my colleagues, and we're going to position that way moving forward. And Craig, I love it. Just include it. It's always optional, but what's the worst they're going to tell you is no, right? I mean, and I like that philosophy. But no, 100%. Once again, this has been major value. Now you got me thinking about a lot of stuff based on this. I mean, today.
I guess it would be great if anyone's on the call, or from you, Travis, has anyone sort of seen any good needs for analytics and where it's been deployed usefully? That might be good to sort of share some of that sort of stuff. But typically from my side, everything you've said, Travis, is a good example of where we see it being used by partners. So if anyone's got any great ideas, then share them, and let's all see it and learn.
Yeah, no, team, everybody that's on the call channel, my colleagues, if you have any additional questions or use cases, or and Craig, you've done a brilliant job today. Thank you very much. But anything that Craig's elaborated on that now's gotten you thinking, oh, here we go right here. Perry, thank you for your question, my friend. So it's a little lengthy, so I'm going to read through this. He does have a couple of questions until another time. I just want to get them. Okay. Does A365 rely exclusively on Microsoft Graphics APIs, or do we use a particular service, principals, or background agents?
No, it uses entirely Microsoft Graph API. Really simple answer, straightforward question. So just to elaborate a bit more on that, if you like. So the synchronization process is really straightforward. When we connect to the tenant, we just hook into the API and we start pulling the data. It synchronizes. I always say within 24 hours. In reality, it's a lot quicker. But just to set expectations, with large organizations, some of that data can take a wee while. But ultimately, for a small organization, it will take minutes to synchronize. But yeah, we take everything out of the API. And it's really, really straightforward. It's the only data source we need.
Okay, so there's a couple questions now. Hey, Paul, thank you for chiming in. I appreciate that. So I have two more questions for Perry, and then Paul would like us to jump into a short demo, if that's okay.
Okay.
And I think we still have plenty of time, so that's great. So another question from Perry: how do we stay aligned with the Teams API changes as Microsoft moves to analytics into the fabric of VIA? And then also that he would like to understand where the data is stored, into the Fabric, Power BI, and so forth.
Okay, so quite a lot of questions in there. So the data is held in Microsoft Azure. We don't download it. It's all cloud hosted, and it's hosted in region. So we don't transfer data across the world or anything like that to do all of that. It's all literally held in the region that it's been produced in. So hopefully that clarifies that really, really easily. I've forgotten the other questions, Travis. What was the other ones?
Yeah, no, it's how do we stay in line with Teams API changes as Microsoft moves to more analytics?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I'll answer that from what I can interpret the question, and Travis, keep me straight if you think there's a
Yeah,
different direction for the answer. So I mean, we're really linked closely with Microsoft. We have a really deep relationship with their technical side of things. So as that API is developing and evolving, we will just use more and more data from it to produce as much as we can with it. It does change, as I'm sure a lot of people on the call will realize and know more than I do, that it evolves on a regular basis. And that's a good thing because as we get more and more, we'll be able to do more and more with it. And that does take time. But to sort of in a roundabout way answer the question, we're really closely linked to Microsoft. So we work with them as soon as we get more information about API changes. And actually, because we own the product and we do all of our own dev work in-house, none of this is outsourced whatsoever. So we can actually, as soon as we see a new change, we can work on it really quickly. And if it's an unexpected change, we can work on that really quickly and deploy a patch or an update or a fix or whatever it is we want to call it, as soon as we're comfortable and happy to let that go. So yeah, hopefully that, do you think is that the answer to the question, Travis, do you think, or is that the wrong angle?
I believe so. Perry said thank you. And then
Yeah.
Perry, I know that you work with Mr. Chun, so if we need to schedule some additional time with Craig and that type, we can. But to Paul's point, Paul, thank you for your comment. We do have plenty of time left, so if we can run into a demo, I think that would be beneficial for the team today.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's do that right now. So I've just fired it up in the background. So hopefully you can see that now. Travis, you got that on the screen there? Right there. No,
there we go.
That's it. Yeah, I forgot to, sorry, I toggled it off just now.
I know how to sell this stuff. I don't know how to use it. Just saying.
Fair enough. So what I've done, I've just launched into the product. I mean, I've not preempted this at all. So this is going to be just a bit of a high level walkthrough. So what we'll see as we cover this is some of the areas we've already talked about. And we may cover some other stuff, but we might cover a bit more if you like. So the first point we talk about is the UI. So as you can see, it's a really clean UI. The format is on the left-hand side. You've got the sort of menus and the high-level information, and then the next level of detail is on the right-hand side of this. So as I say, this is the demo environment, so it's kind of preloaded with an awful lot of data in here. But you can see very quickly that without having to do too much work, I can see what's going on at a high level in my business, and I've got usage by agents across the right-hand side here. But we mentioned earlier a bit about filtering. So this is the filter box here, and it gives you a number of options in here. So if you wanted to filter by time frame, you can do so. You can even change the business hours of the product as well. So it only looks for certain hours of the day. We talked about filtering by users. That's really straightforward. And this is where we talked about that scenario with the sales campaign, for example. We talked about the inbound DDO, for example. So you might set a certain number in here, and then that enables you to zero in on that performance. You can filter by the queues, or actually even types of calls. So the duration or the wait time or the direction or the outcomes example. So, what was answered, abandoned, and all that sort of good stuff. So very quickly, the idea is, as I described, you can sort of start up here and quite quickly you can narrow down to a really defined search area with just a few clicks, to be perfectly honest. Perfect. And then we get into some of the numbers, if you like, about what sort of data we can actually present. Clearly at the moment, this is just highlighting all the total calls, and you can obviously just click on each of these and it will refresh the more detailed side on the right-hand side for that relevant part of the data we present. And then each of these, you've got a sub-menu down here, if you like, about a bit more detail. So I just clicked on the answer calls, and this tells us a bit more about the total talk time. The average talk time, calls per hour, time of last call. I'm not going to go into each one of these because you get the idea about it. And then it's clickable, as I say. So then on the right-hand side, the next level of detail comes down. So we can see here that in this data, there's an average talk time of 5 minutes. And then you can see a bit more about that by each person that makes up that calling list as well. Then there's the auto attendance and call.
Real quick, Craig, on some of this right here. So some of this you've already answered. Lily just asked some really great questions. Lily, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And I can't see you, but it's always good to see you. So concerning real-time analytics, we've kind of gone through that, I think, with the call performance. So does this support real-time analytics? For instance, if a call comes in, is a call visible to the tool? And then also the second question proposed is what type of AI capabilities does the tool support?
So let's answer the first one first. So when you're looking at,
Yep.
let's set it for today, if you like, there's an amount of live data we've got in here. So if we set it to today, and then just apply the filter, you'll see that there's a live status field appears here. So you can see an element of live calling data. So you can see what status people are in, what each of those agent statuses are in. And then you can start to see a bit more detail about that as well. So you can zero in a bit more about the actual agent's live status as it goes. The calls are updated as they're closed, of course, though. So it doesn't show live calling in progress, if you like. There is actually a way to do that, but you need to take a different piece of software from us as well, which is a conversation for another time, Travis. But there is a capability for us to do some other stuff in here. But principally, you see live agent status as the live calling information, if you like. And then I'm just going to put this back to the same filter we had before. The second question was about AI. So we as I mentioned earlier, we talk about conversation intelligence on us. And our AI at the moment is focused on the recording side of stuff. So not necessarily an agenda for this call, but we are actively working as a business on where else AI will fit. We've got an exciting roadmap of features and things coming up as a business for this year, which clearly we're not going to go into details of that now. But all I'd say on that is watch this space in time, and let's see what we can bring to the party on that one. But with some of our other products, we use AI heavily to produce an awful lot of really interesting and really valuable intelligence for users. So yeah, a bit of a political answer there, Travis, but I hope that's okay to pass that one around.
Yeah. And Lily, once again, those are great questions, and thank you as always. And so, Lily, let's do this. What we can do is, I know that Jason Shepard supports you, so maybe we can have some additional time scheduled. And you're more than welcome, Lily, and hopefully that answered your questions for today. So, but if you have more, please ask them too.
So we were talking about the call performance. So like I say, I'm not going to click on each one of these because it'll give you the principal idea about it. And this is where we can see some of the call queue activity as well. So this is a great feature that was released, I think, beginning of this year. So for each of the queues that we synchronize, you can actually see a bit more detail about what's going on in that queue as well. And this is where, Travis, if you remember, we spoke earlier about you can change some of those thresholds. So you just set here about what does good look like. So what threshold should a call be answered for that queue? So you change it in here, and it gives you a visual representation of what's going on. And the statistics that we look at tell you would be updated to reflect that change. So this is where we go about the sort of performance management side of things, where as a business, you can actually get under the skin of what's going on to say, what's the experience our customers are getting in quite a lot of detail.
Now, when you're making these changes, Craig, the threshold and the calls and the the formats, and now this is not done at like an agent level, like a Travis level, right? This is more or is it done at an agent level?
This is on a queue level. This one's on a queue level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, exactly. That's right. Yeah,
I thought it was, but I wanted to make sure of that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's a good question. And then, it's similar in the auto attendant. It's slightly different format, but you can see a similar sort of level of information that we can present for the auto attendants as well. So, we can see quite a lot of information here. And again, what the key thing is, it's what do you do with that info? It might mean different things to different businesses and departments, but actually, seeing it and using it is more important than just than pretending you know.
Sure.
And then we've got some incoming performance stats. These are sort of fairly expected, if you like. So what percentage of calls have been missed? How many have been answered in target? And grade of service is a way we calculate of the number of calls that have been answered, how many were answered in the accepted period of time. So you get an indication of what that customer experience is like at the other end. You've got wait times and average talk times. And then the one that I always talk about the most, which is the missed calls. So in this set of filters for the data we've got in here, we know there was 975 unreturned calls. Of those, 714 have been returned, and then 61 of those were returned in target. So again, very quickly, you can start to build a picture of what's going on. And the list is dynamic as well. So if that caller receives a call back, it'll drop off of the unreturned missed calls list as well. So it prevents that sort of repetitive calling back to a certain customer as well.
Right.
And we can see in this sort of sub data set here how many calls so in this example here, this participant has actually rung 5 times. So that would suggest to me they need to speak to you quite quickly. So you need to get hold of them. Again, if you click in on that, you'll be able to see the next level of detail down as well. So all of the sort of hyperlinks are obviously more drillable. And the last part, which is a relatively new release to us early this year, was Teams to Teams calling in here. So we've started to add some Teams analysis and analytics in here as well. So for some of the more obvious statistics, you've got the Teams to Teams calling information in there as well. And that's all included with the standard product anyway. So there's no additional licensing required in there at all. So that's the sort of filters and the sort of options. Hopefully that starts to build a picture of the sort of power of what you can do. There's also, I mean, there's so much more you can do with it by drilling into the information. Up here at the moment, I've just got it set as a user view, but you can change some of the views over here. When I'm trying to find a particular call scenario here to share, actually. This is also really useful. There's a download and a sharing function, so you can download the data to do more analysis with it if you want to, or you can share it, or you can schedule it. And this is where some of our customers find a lot of value. One of the things we talked about earlier is sharing that data across management. And actually what you can do is just set the report to schedule 3 times a day. So let's say the unreturned missed calls list is shared at, say, 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and 3:30. And just set it up in there, and it will fire that list off to the relevant team to get on with it and actually proactively call those people back. You don't need to log in and keep setting it to do it. It's just going to help you run your business in the background. So that's a really useful feature. That we
and then also, Craig, Wally just asked a really great question. I think we kind of covered this a little bit. Maybe we can elaborate a little bit more. And Wally, it's great to talk to you as well, my friend. Wally has stated concerning, we had just stated, hey, we're going to include it, right? We might as well include it. But let's elaborate. Is he saying, is there a certain size that we should stay away from? And then also we kind of talked about the verticals. Me personally, I think I look at it as anything service related, performance level related. Yes, most definitely. That I would include it on every single one of them. And I'm looking at size. To me, Wally, and Craig's the expert. I'm not, but it doesn't matter if they have 5 users or if they have 5,000. In any type of service or performance, I'm including it. That's my personal opinion.
You're spot on, Travis. Absolutely spot on. I mean, there is because we use the Azure platform, it's a scalable process. So we don't have there's no sort of tipping point. In my personal experience, the larger organizations, typically like the thousands of users, they just take a bit longer to synchronize, for example, and they can have more complex call setups. And sometimes that might need a bit more looking into, but ultimately it's scalable exactly as you say, from 5 to 5,000. It's not there's no tipping point to say don't go near it because of ABC at all. And verticals, it's exactly the same.
Perfect. Yeah. No, you're more than welcome, Wally. That's a great question. Thank you for joining the conversation this afternoon. So, but yeah, I mean, I look at any type of service level, performance level, matrices that I need that can help me run my business better on a day-to-day basis. And that might be consistent of a small SMB marketplace of 5 people. And then, we could be doing a car dealership that has, 50 or 60 car salesmen taking calls or whatever the case might be. So,
I mean, typically, as we said earlier, anyone with an inbound, outbound environment could have a benefit for this. It's just a case of which part of it would be of most value to them. So if you remember the slide with the 4 vertical arrows on it, there was missed calls for the small business, for example. You've got service levels for a slightly bigger organization, for example. So there's a different need for different size businesses, but there's a potential need for all sizes, if you like.
Yeah. And that's a great thing about it, right? You had the 4 prongs that you showed, and that, one might use 2 or 3 and might use 1, but it provides the flexibility to accommodate those type of verticals or that type of business model at that point in time.
Absolutely. I just clicked on a part of the product here to open up what we call the call journey, and this is a really useful part. So if you want to, for example, when we talked earlier about performance or customer experience, you might want to understand how many legs a call is going through to sort of see what experience that customer's experience. All I've done is I've just clicked into this 2 of 2 here, for example. Now, in some of these examples, there might be 4 or 5 legs to a call. This has only just got 2 on it, for example. Right. So this shows at a very high level that this caller calling into the new accounts desk had 2 legs to the call. So it was missed, and then it went to a voicemail. So quite quickly you can see, well, that's not particularly a very good experience. So actually what I'd want to do is dig into that call journey in more detail and say, well, was it because whoever our Galsworthy is didn't answer the call properly, didn't answer quick enough, or was actually on divert, or whatever it is? It gives you that ability to actually go and do some specific focus on it. And that's a really valuable tool that a lot of customers talk about when they're using the product. The call journey, it's also useful for complaints. We all love a good complaint call. So frequently if people talk about, I waited so and so and so and so for such and such things, well, let's have a look and we can find out.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
That's also
we all get those type of calls every once in a while. So.
Yeah, exactly that. And that's the sort of key parts of it. We've been through a lot in a few minutes. That's the high level of the dashboards. There is a wallboard functionality to this in here as well. So you can build wallboards that show information. So if you do want to put it on a screen, great, pop it on a screen. We can do that from here as well. And it's actually really intuitive to build these wallboards as well. So it does have the facility to show some of that other information as well. So that's a super high level run through, Travis, and I'm conscious that was probably done in about 12 minutes. So
no, this is brilliant.
Work through,
no, this is
but hopefully
brilliant.
it gives a flavor.
Yeah, no, you did a brilliant job as always. We appreciate it. So, and I know we're coming up on our hour, and I know people's time are very valuable, but I do want to close out on this. Unless if you have any questions, please continue to type, and we'll address those. We still have time. But I know today, we just fit in a lot of data and information in a very short period of time. So as I stated, your sales directors will be reaching out. They want to address any additional questions. If we need to schedule one-on-ones to take a deeper dive, obviously they'll talk to you about pricing structures. But obviously we're here to accommodate those additional times. So don't hesitate to reach out. They're going to reach out. And guys, I really, once again, I say this about a lot of our alliance partners, but with this one, and really spending time more at Channel Partners with your team a couple weeks ago, this is a major piece of the puzzle that we've missed. And I think as a company, we're going to excel at this. Our channel is going to excel with this. And it's just going to drive additional revenue with everything that we deliver to them, from the team's environment to analytics and everything else that they're putting on their paper, or we're putting on our paper to support their efforts. I truly feel that. And I'm extremely excited about this opportunity.
Yeah, great.
So, and I hope our channel is as well. And Craig, you're amazing in your presentation. I appreciate it today. So
that's the problem too.
Based on that, I'm gonna give it just a minute or so, unless we have some final questions. If not, again, everybody, we truly appreciate the last hour of your day. It's appreciated. And if not, we're gonna call it. We're gonna wrap it up and let you guys get back to work. Right. I see Perry's typing. Oh, Perry, you're more than welcome, Perry. Thank you for joining this afternoon. I appreciate you, man.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to end it there. Craig, always a pleasure. We'll get caught up later this week. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. We appreciate you.
No problem.